What's up, guys? Welcome to the 23rd Xamarin Android tutorial. And in this tutorial, as well as the next few, we're going to be switching some things up by looking at some new Android widgets. Okay, so the first one's going to be the Recyclerview. And to me, the Recyclerview is very important because it's probably going to replace the list view here in some time. And mainly that's because it's a lot more efficient at recycling and reusing views, which makes it great for handling large data sets. Okay, and as technology becomes more and more advanced, we get more data, we get higher resolution pictures, and we need better ways to efficiently handle the reusing of views, which helps memory efficiency. Okay, so there's also a lot of other things that are great for the Recyclerview, but that's one really big prominent feature of it that makes it great for replacing the list view. Okay, so let me show you an example of a project that we will be working on that uses a Recyclerview. Okay, so this is one I already have all written up, and here I am just adding some items. And notice the animation when I add and delete, and that is default by the Recyclerview. Okay, so that's another cool feature with the Recyclerview is default animations. And there we have it. And you might look at this and be like, hey, this is just a list view. What the heck? And as we dive deeper and deeper into the Recyclerview, you'll soon hopefully realize that the benefits, not only what I tell you, but you'll start seeing some of your own things that you can use the Recyclerview that are a lot easier to do in it than the list view. And I'll show you some cool stuff along the way. All right, so before we get started, let's dive a little more into what the Recyclerview has to offer for us. Okay, so the Recyclerview, first of all, like I said before, it simplifies the displaying of large data sets with the layout manager. Okay, and I'll talk about the layout manager right now in a second. And also what it does is it handles recycling of views more efficiently than list views, like I've already explained. And these two go hand in hand. Okay, so because it handles the recycling and reusing of views more efficiently, it can display larger data sets within it. Okay, so remember that these two do go hand in hand. And like you've seen a moment ago, that it provides default animations for adding and deleting, and it does provide some other default animations, but adding and deleting are some really common things that you'll be doing with it. So it does add some default animations for that, but there are some other things as well. Okay, so just want to point that out. And then lastly, because of basically all of these and some other stuff, it does provide more flexibility to the developer. Okay, so like I said, in the next couple of tutorials, hopefully you'll be able to start seeing that the flexibility it adds to you with using a linear layout like a list view, or you can do a grid layout, a staggered layout, all using the same adapter. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. We're going to dive into that. And lastly, here is something that I took off the Android developer website, and I thought I'd talk about this for a second. So here's the inner workings of a Recyclerview. Okay, so the Recyclerview, like I said, has a layout manager. This layout manager. Okay, and the layout manager, what that does is it decides when to reuse and to recycle a view. Okay, so if it does decide to recycle a view, it'll talk to the adapter and ask for some new data to populate the Recyclerview with. Okay, and also what's great about it is not only will it recycle and reuse, it won't only recycle a view, but it will reuse a view. Okay, and what I mean by that is, say if you have just a simple view, a row of two text views, what it'll do is it'll take those text views and it will not just take them out of memory and make two more text views, because if it has the same view, that the next position has the same kind of view, it will reuse those views. Okay, so it'll replace those two text views with just some new data. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So it won't create a new two text view, a new row, by using find view by ID, because that's really costly when we do find view by IDs. But what it will do is it'll reuse those views and then take it from the data to replace those with. Okay, so that's key, and that's what allows all of this really to happen. The layout manager does a lot of the bulk work for us. All right. So when we create a recycler view, what we're going to be doing is we're going to first import the support library. And the support library right now is actually in beta for Xamarin. So we do have some C# bindings to work with, but we've got to keep in mind that it still is in beta at this current moment, okay? But we do need to use the support library to use the recycler view. The next thing, we'll create the recycler view just like we do list views and every other view inside of the designer. And we'll create the layout manager, remember the one that does the bulk work, and attach it to the recycler view. The next thing we'll do is, since this is really important, is we'll create our custom adapter, okay? And our adapter is responsible for doing the custom view, making the custom view holder, okay? So it holds the custom view, or our row that we basically create. And then also there's another method that will actually override that binds the data to our view, okay? So we have the view, then we'll actually bind it, all right? And the last thing we'll do is we'll attach that custom view to our recycler view, okay? So that's what we're gonna be doing in this tutorial. So let's get started, guys. All right, so let me go ahead and close out of that, and we'll start a new project. All right, let's go into our new project. All right, and we'll just call it Recyclerview tutorial. Okay, so as always, Xamarin makes some buttons, a button for us and a template and all that good stuff. So we'll just get rid of that. And what I like to do first is I like to go into the XML file and start designing something, okay? So that's what I'll do right now is I'll go into recycler view, okay? Or I'll start going in here and making the recycler view, all right? So what we're gonna do for that, or what we're gonna need for that, is just one recycler view the way we do a list view, but we'll need the support library for this, okay? So here's where we'll need to open up the package manager, okay? So we'll open up go to tools, and you wanna open up the package manager console. And we'll let that boot up. All right, and we'll need to type in a command here, which I believe I have written down somewhere around here. Okay, so what we'll need to do is, because it's still in beta, it's not gonna be in the normal way that we grab our references. We're actually need to get it from the package manager, which is why I'm doing it this way. All right, so just type in install-package and xamarin.android.support v7 and recycler view, PRE. All right, and if we ever did everything correct, it'll start installing that for us. And it's gonna install the dependent, which is the Xamarin support version 4. So once everything's installed, we can check over here to verify that. And we'll see that this got installed, which is a dependent, so that's fine. And then our version 7 recycler view got installed, okay? So all good there. What we could do, what we can do now is we can add in our recycler view, okay? So let's go ahead and do that right now. Version 7, widget, recycler view. All right, so that's gonna be it. And then we're just gonna add some common attributes to this, like an ID and all that good stuff, okay? So we'll do that real quick. Do at plus ID, and we'll just call it recycler view. And we'll specify a width, which is match parent, and we'll do a height, same thing. And I'm just brushing over this because the attributes are pretty something that you probably already are familiar with, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. And we'll do one last property called scroll bars. All right, and we'll make a vertical scroll bar. All right, close that out. go into our designer, and then we'll make sure, okay, so our recycler view is taking up the whole screen, okay? It's just the way we want it. All right. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to make the view, which is in this case is just going to be a row, okay? And it's going to look a lot like the Android developer website. I just kind of took it from there and just created my own template. I didn't want to think of anything new to create. I mean, the views aren't really something that we're going to be concentrating on, so we don't need to spend too much time on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my view, and what I'll call it is I'll call it just call it row for right now. Whatever you name it's fine. And since I'm not going to spend too much time on this, and I know it's going to be pretty monotonous if I do, since we've gone over everything before, I'm just going to copy and paste this. This project will be available in the link below, so don't worry. But it's pretty standard. There's nothing special going on here. All right. And I did mess up. I did make it an XML. Sorry about that, guys. Not a AXML. So let me go ahead and do that now. All right, so now the designer will render it. And as you can see, it's just a template for our row that you guys saw a few moments ago. Okay, so that's all that's going to be. And that's basically everything with our view, okay? And you can see that it's just a linear layout that's stacked horizontally, two linear layouts, these two, that are stacked horizontally, and then inside of its children are stacked vertically, okay? So that's all it is. Like I said, nothing special. You guys are probably already used to doing that kind of stuff. And if not, just reference it in the project. All right, so creating the recycler view, okay? So if we remember back to the PowerPoint, we've got the support library. We made it inside of the AXML file, okay? So now that all we need to do is essentially code everything up now, okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to get a reference to our recycler view, okay? So recycler view, and we'll just call it recycler view, and we'll need to import it, okay? And the next thing we want to do is we want to get our layout manager, okay? So remember, the layout manager is the one that does a lot of the work as far as reusing or deciding when to reuse views and to recycle them, okay? And we'll just call it layout manager. And the next thing we want to do is we want to get an instance of the adapter, okay? And remember, the adapter is going to be the intermediary between the layout manager and recycler view in the data set, all right? So it's what binds the views and creates the views and has the view holders and everything. So it does a lot of the work as well. And that's good for now. All right, so we're gonna need to reference this now by using the find view by ID. All right, so we'll do, recycler view and resource.id. And I believe I called it recycler view. It's just not coming up right now because I have not rebuilt it. So let's go ahead and do that now, rebuild it so it has all of our IDs ready to go. Because I'm just lazy like that, I guess. Okay, so, all right, so that's good. Everything built. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to now instantiate create our layout manager. And the way we do that is pretty simple. We will just provide or make an instance of it. Okay, new recycler view dot layout manager. All right, and this should take, oh, I'm sorry. We want it to be a linear layout manager. Okay, so our linear layout manager is going to be a lot like a linear layout, just stacks vertically or horizontally. Okay, so it'll stack vertically by default. And we'll need to provide a context with this as the activity, so that'll be fine. And as soon as we do that, we want to actually now set the layout manager. Okay, so now that we attach it to the recycler view, and remember that's what we wanted to do next, we wanted to attach it. Now what we need to do is we need to create a custom adapter. Okay. And the way we do that is what we'll do is we'll come down here and we'll do it inside of the same file just to make things simple, but you could put it in your own file if you like to, but just to keep everything tightly together for the sake of brevity, we'll go ahead and keep it in here. All right, so this is where we need to make our custom adapter. Okay, so this is where we'll do that, and we'll just call it Recycler Adapter, and we're going to inherit from the Recyclerview adapter. Okay. So once again, guys, remember that the version 7, the Recyclerview, as of right now, is in beta. So if you're watching this at any time around this time, then the Recyclerview is still in beta. Hopefully later on or pretty soon it's going to be in a full stable mode. So there, like that being said, there might be some bugs with the Recyclerview right now, but Xamarin is working hard on giving us a full version with all the C# bindings. Okay, so it is a little rough on the edges as far as like parameters and stuff. It doesn't really give you any kind of names. It just says like parameter 0, parameter 1. So you kind of got to do a lot of referencing, and I'll do my best to change those parameters around and make them a little less generic for you guys. And you guys will see what I mean right now. So the first thing we want to do is we want to provide a constructor. Okay, so the constructor is going to take a list, which we'll need to import. It's going to take a list of, we'll call them email. Okay, so it's going to take a list of email. We have not yet made the email class, but we will now and here in a minute. Let's first import the generic library. Do that, and it doesn't know what the heck we're talking about. So what we can do, email, that should be fine. So we'll go in here and we'll make a new class called email. All right, and then the email is just going to have a few things. It's going to have a name like we've seen before. We'll have a name. We'll just make a few properties, and it's going to have a subject, and it's going to have a message. It's going to have a time, which is like the 15 minutes ago or an hour ago or whatever, and we'll leave that as a string too, but we'll just call it time. And then we could have another one that's called like favorite, which the star will light up if it's favorite or if it's not. So we can have a bool that's like, if this email, we want to favorite it or something like that. And then when that favorite comes up, we can keep it at the top or archive it or something like that. So, whatever you guys want to do with that, you guys want to start playing around with this, but we'll just do favorites. Just make that a bool. Okay, so that's going to be basically our email class. It's just going to be a structure that holds some primitive values. Okay, so here we go. So now we have we want to have a list of email. All right, and we'll call it emails, and we'll then initialize that to whatever's passed in. All right, so that's going to be our constructor. Pretty simple. All right, now the next thing we want to do is all this is important, of course, but this one's really important because what we want to do is we want to make a view. Okay, and the view is going to be like if you guys remember the PowerPoint, what it does is it creates the view. Okay, so it's the view holder, and it holds all of the views. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and do that. And what we need to do is we need to inherit from the view holder class, okay, which is provided within the Recyclerview class. All right, so let's go ahead and inherit from that. And then here's where we're going to have all of our views. Okay, so I'm going to have a few properties, and what they're going to be is, let's make it a main view property. All right, so that's going to be our actual view, the entire view of the row or any whatever layout we have. Okay, so the linear layout, we're going to have a row, and if we had a grid layout, we'd have like cells or something like that. So our text view is going to be, we'll call it M. It's going to be our name. It's what's going to hold all the stuff inside of our emails. Okay, so remember our email had a name, then it had a subject, subject, and then there was another one that was message. So once again, these are just text views that are going to, whose text are going to hold the data within the email class. All right, so then now we have all that, and then we want to just make a constructor for our nested class, if you will, inside of our adapter class that takes one parameter, calls its base method that passes that view, that main view that we pulled in, and what we do is we do main view equals view. Okay, so we're gonna pass in when we create the view. All right, we're gonna pass in the main view. All right, so we can do this one of a few ways. We can do it this way. We can pass in all the values. We can, you know, not do it and then create the instance of it, and then my view dot mname equals dot m subject. So a lot of different ways to do it. We want to make sure we initialize all these views before we pass it back to the method that calls it, which is actually what we're going to do next. Okay, so this method right here is part of the recycler adapter, and it overrides. So we're going to override Oncreateview holder. Okay, so with this now is where we actually create the view for each row in this case. Okay, so let's call that, let's call it a row. Okay, and this is where we actually inflate it. Okay, so we need to grab the context, and we can get the context from here. Okay, here's what I mean by P0, P1, and I believe this is because it's in beta right now. It's just when we actually override it, just gives us some very generic names, and I had to kind of look up and reference it in the Android developer website and see like what is this, because obviously it helps to know that kind of stuff. And here's what they are, a little more specific name for it, so that might help you out a little bit. So we want to take the parent and we want to get its context. Okay, so that's what a layout viewer, and with that passes back a layout inflator, which we can then use its method inflate to inflate our row. Okay, which is remember our row is what we created right here. Okay, so here's our row, and it's going to inflate it every single time it's called. Okay, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, 1,000, whatever. So that's what it's doing every single time, and that's what this method's responsible for. Okay, so a lot like the adapter inside of the list view adapter, but little different, subtle differences that we're facing. Okay, all right, so there we go. Now that we have that, we can now start to initialize our fields. Okay, so we know we have a text view, and we'll call it txt name, and we'll do row find view by id. It's going to be a text view resource.id, and it's going to be txt name. And remember, the txt name is what's going to hold the data for the name of the email. All right, so we'll do that here in shortly. And then this name will equal, we're going to pass that into here, and it'll equal this name. All right, so that's all we're doing right here. Okay, so we'll do txt subject find view by id. All right, so that's all I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to move a little quickly. If you guys want to follow along, this is going to hold our message, this text view. So right now I'm just binding to the text views inside of our designer file. All right, and the next thing what we'll do is we're actually going to create an instance of our myView class. All right, so we'll call that myView equals new myView, and remember that it takes a view, which is going to be our main view, which is the actual row. Okay, so this is the whole view. Okay, so this is this whole thing in this case right now. Okay, and then I'll be lazy, and I'll go ahead and provide a initialization this way. Okay, subject equals txt subject, and finally message equals txt message. Okay, So now we have that, and then now we just wanted to return the view, okay? So it expects a view holder, which is what my view is since it inherits from it, and we return it, okay? So it's happy with that. All right, so cool. Now we have the references to the appropriate fields, right? But we don't have any data for it. We haven't bound any data, okay? And that's what we do in this next method, is we actually bind the data, okay? So in the list, in the common list view, if you guys are familiar with it, you'll know that that's where you kind of create the view, then you bind it in the same method, in the get view method. But here we actually do it in two separate methods, okay? So it decouples the two responsibilities of it, okay? So this actually creates the view, and here we'll actually bind it, okay? So once again, I'll give you some better names, which is going to be the holder, and this is going to be the actual position of it, okay? So here we go, and we have my view, my holder, I'll call it, and we'll need to cast the holder, because right now the holder is a view holder, right? A generic view holder. We'll need to cast it to a my view, okay? I don't know why it's doing that. My equals, that's why. Little parse error. Okay, as my view. Okay, so that's gonna cast it, all right? And I noticed that we should have a template up here, and if we had a template, we wouldn't have to cast it. We could just do something like, you know, like where we can have a generic, and we won't have to, it would know that we're going to pass in a my view instead of a view holder. But for some reason the library is not giving me an option to do that. So I'm once again assuming that's because of the support library is currently in beta. All right. So, but no problem. We'll just go ahead and cast it. And now that we have casted it, we can do something like, yeah, we could do main view. Oops. Actually, we'll do text. Okay, so name. So this is where we actually bind the data. Okay, so then we'll use our email, right? And we'll use the position of it, and then we'll do name. Okay, so my holder, and we'll do the same thing for subject equals emails dot. All right, so right now I am just binding the data. And it looks really ugly because I'm got all this red around me. Hopefully all that disappears. But it won't. So yeah, that's what I did wrong. So here we actually want to do text. Okay, so the text of the text view. Okay, so sorry about that, guys. I was trying to initialize a text view to a string. So okay, so the text of the text view to the text of this current email. All right, and that's all we'll do there. That's all bound up, good to go. All right, and the last thing we want to do is we want to override the count. All right, so override. I believe it's item count. Yeah, item count. Okay, so much like the adapter with the list view, it needs to know how many items there are currently in the adapter. Okay, and the way we do that is how many emails there are, and we'll just return the count property of the list. All right, guys. All right, so that's going to be our adapter, and that's all that's doing there. Once again, this creates the view, then this takes those views and binds the data to it. This returns the number of views currently in the adapter. This is our view holder that holds all of the views for the current row, and this is simply our constructor. So now that we have that, now we want to finally attach our adapter. So set adapter, and we'll do new recycler, recycler adapter. Whoops. Sorry guys, I misspelled that. Recycler. So I spelled it right the first time, not the first time. Or the second time, not the first time. All right, so recycler adapter, and we need to pass in the list of emails, which is something we have not yet created. All right, So we'll need to do a list of emails, and we'll call it m emails, and we'll do m emails equals new list of emails, and we'll pass that to here to our adapter. All right, so well, since we made an adapter up here, we'll go ahead and just make an instance of it. And I was just trying to be lazy, but this way is probably a little cleaner. Okay. Make sure everything is good to go. Let's rebuild it. Inconsistent accessibility. All right. Let's see, that's probably just because something's private when it shouldn't be. Public. Once in a while I'll get this. And it's good that it came up because maybe you might have got it before too. So it's for this recycler adapter. Okay, so our email class, I'm assuming is private, of course, by default. And we're trying to access it, but it won't let us. All right, okay. So that happens pretty often. I forget sometimes that C# does things and it's private by default. So we were trying to access a private class within a public class. Okay, so wasn't consistent. Alrighty, so okay, so I went ahead and rebuilt. All right, so let's go ahead and now add some of our data, which we can do right here. Okay, the adding, deleting, like I showed you a moment ago, was with like the actual buttons, where it's something that we're going to work on in the next tutorial, because that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to I'll show you how to notify the adapter to show that list of change and how to do it efficiently, because you can do notify data set of change, but it's actually really inefficient to do that when you know the actual position that the view changed. So it only has to redraw and basically redraw some of the recycler view. Okay, so we'll go into that in the next tutorial. So right now we're just going to add some new emails. All right, so what we can do is we could do, name equals Tom, and message, well, I'll do subject first, equals wanna hang out, and the next one will be the message, which we'll do I'll be around tomorrow. Yeah, so whatever. And we won't specify anything for the, I didn't tie up anything for the time or the favorite, but that's something that is pretty trivial at this point. I'm sure you know how to do. We're just trying to concentrate on the recycler view. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll add a few more to this that are all the same. Doesn't really matter. Start this up. And of course we need to change the minimum version to something like API level 15 for the emulator to run, and come into here. All right. All right, cool. So good to go. Like I said, we didn't bind any of this stuff, but we could easily do that. No biggie. So if you guys want to go ahead and bind this, and you want to, take this from here and start something that you want to work on, it's going to be the same way to do it here. But these are all bounded now, and we can see that our recycler view is actually working pretty good. Okay, so we cannot add and delete dynamically, which, like I said, we'll do in the next tutorial. But now we can see that we do have a foundation of, and hopefully a good understanding of the recycler view. Okay, so how to set it up and how to bind it, and mainly using the layout manager and the base adapter. Okay, so In the next tutorial, we'll go into more of the cool features of the Recyclerview. Okay, so sit tight, and hope you guys have a good understanding now of what it's all about, though. Okay, so see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching.